Deep beneath the purple crystal caves of Astoria 7, mining equipment screamed against ancient rock formations that had never known sunlight, never felt the touch of any living creature until humans arrived with their determination to dig deeper than anyone thought possible. The drilling team had been working for 3 months straight, following a rare mineral vein that promised to make them all wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. But today something changed, something that would alter the course of human understanding forever. "Boss, you need to see this," called out Miner Pete as his drill bit suddenly broke through into what sounded like a hollow chamber, the echo suggesting a space far larger than. Their narrow tunnel mining supervisor Carl wiped the sweat from his weathered face and crawled through the cramped passage toward the source of Pete's excitement, his headlamp cutting through the darkness ahead, revealing something that made his breath catch in his throat where solid rock should have been. A vast crystalline chamber stretched out before them, its walls covered in symbols that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. And at the center of this impossible space sat something that belonged in fairy tales, not on a mining world at the edge of known space. A small creature, no larger than a house cat, lay curled in what appeared to be a cage made of pure energy, its scales shifting colors from deep purple to brilliant silver as it breathed, and from those beautiful eyes fell tears that turned to crystal the moment they touched the chamber floor. "What in the name of all that's holy is that thing?" Pete whispered, his voice barely audible above the hum of the energy bars that held. The creature prisoner Carl had seen many strange things during his 40 years of mining across the galaxy, but nothing had prepared him for this moment, this discovery that would challenge everything humanity thought they knew about intelligent life in the universe. The creature lifted its small head at the sound of human voices, and for just a moment, Carl could have sworn he saw something that looked almost like hope flash across those ancient-looking eyes before they filled with tears once more. "Get on the radio," Carl ordered, his voice shaking slightly as he realized the magnitude of what they had found. "Tell the station we need Dr. Hayes down here immediately, and tell her to bring all her xenobiology equipment." "Should we try to get closer to it?" Pete asked, already taking a step toward the energy cage drawn by an inexplicable desire to comfort the obviously distressed creature. "No," Carl said firmly, grabbing Pete's arm. "We don't know what those energy bars are for, and we sure don't know what that little guy is capable of. For all we know, he could be dangerous." But as they watched, the creature let out the most heartbreaking sound either man had ever heard, a soft whimper that seemed to speak of loneliness and despair that had lasted far too long, and more crystal tears fell to join the growing pile beneath the energy cage. Dr. Rebecca Hayes received the emergency call while she was analyzing soil samples in her laboratory aboard the orbital research station, and the description the miners gave her sounded so impossible that she almost dismissed it as hallucinations brought on by too much time underground. "You're telling me you found a live dragon in a crystal cave," she said into her communicator, trying to keep the skepticism out of her voice. "I know how it sounds, Doc, but you need to see this for yourself." Carl's voice crackled through the static. "This thing, whatever it is, it's real and it's alive and it's crying actual crystal tears." Rebecca had spent her entire career studying alien life forms across dozens of worlds, cataloging everything from microscopic organisms to massive herd animals, but she had never encountered anything that remotely resembled the creature the miners described within 2 hours. She was rappelling down into the crystal chamber with a full scientific field kit, her heart racing with the excitement that came with potentially discovering a completely new form of intelligent life. The moment her feet touched the chamber floor, she understood why the miners had been so shaken by their discovery. The creature was unlike anything in any xenobiology database, and the technology holding it captive appeared to be far more advanced than anything the current galactic civilization possessed. She approached slowly, speaking in soft tones as she would with any frightened animal, and was amazed when the creature seemed to respond to her voice by lifting its head and making soft, chirping sounds. "Hello there, little one," she whispered, setting up her scanning equipment at a safe distance from the energy cage. "Don't worry. We're going to figure out what's wrong and try to help you." Her initial scans revealed that the creature's biological signature was unlike anything she had ever encountered. Its cellular structure seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time, and the energy reading suggested it possessed capabilities that defied current scientific understanding. More disturbing were the readings from the energy shackles themselves, which appeared to be slowly draining the creature's life force while preventing it from accessing what looked like enormous reserves of untapped power. These restraints, she murmured to herself as she analyzed the data, they're not just holding it prisoner, they're keeping it from growing, from developing into whatever it's supposed to become. The creature watched her work with obvious intelligence, its head tilting as it observed her equipment and seeming to understand that she was trying to help, though fresh tears continued to crystallize and fall with heartbreaking regularity. As Rebecca worked deeper into the night, she began to notice patterns in the ancient symbols covering the chamber walls, mathematical equations that described dimensional physics decades ahead of human science, and pictographs that seemed to tell the story of a civilization that had mastered the forces of creation itself. But most intriguingly, scattered throughout the mathematical formulas and historical pictographs were repeated images of creatures that looked exactly like her small prisoner, depicted as guardians and protectors of cosmic balance. "What happened to your people?" she asked softly, looking up at the small dragon, who responded with another series of soft chirps that sounded almost conversational. Her preliminary report to the mining station command sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The discovery of an apparently sapient species with advanced technological capabilities changed everything humans thought they knew about their place in the Galaxy Station. Commander Rivers immediately classified the entire discovery under maximum security protocols. But Rebecca fought for and won the right to continue her research, while additional xenobiology experts were summoned from across human space. As she prepared to leave the chamber for the night, Rebecca noticed something that made her pause. Whenever she spoke directly to the creature, its tears seemed to fall less frequently, and the crystalline formations on the floor appeared to pulse with a warmer light. "I'll be back tomorrow," she promised the small dragon, who responded by pressing itself against the energy bars as close to her as possible, and making what could only be described as a grateful purring sound. That night, as Rebecca compiled her initial findings, she couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery was just the beginning of something much larger and more significant than anyone yet realized, and that the small creature in the crystal chamber held secrets that could revolutionize humanity's understanding of the universe itself. 12-year-old Lily Hayes had always been different from other children, preferring the company of books and small animals to the loud games and social gatherings that seemed to fascinate her peers. But her mother's research expedition to Astoria 7 during her school break promised to be the most boring 3 months of her young life. The mining station's corridors echoed with the constant sound of heavy machinery and adult conversations about profit margins and mineral extraction rates, leaving little room for the imagination of a girl who dreamed of adventure among the stars. Everything changed the morning her mother returned from the crystal caves with stories so incredible that Lily thought they must be elaborate fiction, designed to make their time on this dreary world seem more exciting. A real dragon. "Mom, seriously?" Lily asked, her eyes wide with the kind of wonder that only children possess when faced with the impossible made real. "Not exactly like the dragons in your storybooks," Dr. Hayes explained, trying to contain her daughter's growing excitement while respecting her intelligence. "But something far more extraordinary than anything we've ever encountered before." Despite her mother's warnings about staying away from the restricted research areas, Lily found herself drawn to the lower levels of the station where the discovery was being studied, her curiosity far stronger than her sense of obedience. Late one evening, while her mother worked in the main laboratory analyzing data, Lily slipped past the security checkpoint using her mother's access card and made her way down to the crystal chamber that had become the center of so much adult excitement. The moment she emerged from the access tunnel into the vast crystalline space, Lily understood why her mother had been so affected by this discovery. The chamber was beautiful beyond description, like standing inside a jewel that had been crafted by beings who understood beauty on a cosmic scale. At the center of this magnificent space, trapped within bars of crackling energy, sat the smallest dragon she could ever have imagined, and her heart immediately broke at the sight of the crystal tears falling from its ancient-looking eyes. "Oh, you poor little thing," she whispered, approaching the energy cage with the fearless compassion that only children possess. "Why are you so sad?" To her amazement, the creature lifted its head and looked directly at her, and for the first time since its discovery, it stopped crying and made soft, musical sounds that reminded Lily of the wind chimes her grandmother used to hang on her porch. "Can you understand me?" Lily asked, settling cross-legged on the chamber floor just outside the energy barrier. "I think you can, can't you?" The dragon responded by moving as close to her as the energy bars would allow, pressing its small body against the barrier and continuing to make those gentle, melodic sounds that seemed to convey more meaning than words ever could. Without hesitation, Lily began talking to the creature as she would any lonely friend, telling him about her life aboard the research station, about her favorite books, and about how she sometimes felt just as trapped and misunderstood as he appeared to be. As she spoke, something remarkable happened. The dragon's scales began to shine, more brightly, shifting through colors she had never seen before, and the pile of crystal tears on the chamber floor seemed to pulse with warmth rather than the cold light they had shown before. "I'm going to call you Ember," she said softly, watching as the dragon tilted his head as if considering the name. "Because even though you're sad now, I can see the fire still burning inside you." Ember responded by stretching one small paw toward her, and though the energy barrier prevented them from touching, Lily pressed her hand against the crackling wall of light, and for just a moment, she could swear she felt a warm presence brush against her mind. From that night forward, Lily found ways to visit Ember every day, bringing him small offerings of food that she smuggled from the station cafeteria, and spending hours talking to him about everything and nothing. Her mother, initially concerned about these unauthorized visits, began to notice something extraordinary. In her research data, whenever Lily was present in the chamber, Ember's vital signs improved dramatically, his energy levels increased, and the frequency of his crystalline tears decreased significantly. "It's as if he responds to her on a level we don't understand," Dr. Hayes confided to Station Commander Rivers. "My daughter seems to have some kind of natural empathy that allows her to connect with him in ways that our scientific instruments cannot measure." Commander Rivers focused primarily on the potential military and economic applications of the discovery. Initially dismissed these observations as sentimental nonsense, but the data was too consistent to ignore. Meanwhile, other mining teams had discovered additional chambers deeper in the crystal cave system, uncovering artifacts and inscriptions that suggested Astoria 7 had once been home to an advanced civilization that had mysteriously vanished millennia ago. Lily, with her intuitive understanding of Ember's emotional states, began to notice patterns that the adult researchers missed. Certain symbols in the ancient inscriptions would cause Ember to become agitated, while others seemed to calm him. "The sad pictures make him cry more," she reported to her mother, pointing to inscriptions that depicted what looked like battles between dragon-like creatures. "But the happy ones make his scales glow brighter." Dr. Hayes began to realize that her daughter's emotional connection with Ember was providing insights that years of scientific analysis might never reveal, and she started including Lily's observations in her official reports. As the weeks passed, Ember began to communicate with Lily in ways that went beyond sound and gesture. She started experiencing flashes of emotion that weren't her own, brief moments where she could sense his feelings directly. "He's not just sad about being trapped," she explained to her mother one evening. "He's lonely, like he's been alone for a very, very long time, and he's scared that everyone he ever loved is gone." These empathic experiences frightened Dr. Hayes, who worried about the potential psychological effects on her daughter. But Lily insisted that the connection felt natural and comforting rather than invasive or harmful. Through their growing bond, Lily began to understand that Ember was far more than just an unusual alien creature. He possessed an intelligence that was ancient and profound, limited only by his physical constraints and the mysterious energy shackles that held him prisoner. "He knows things," she told her mother, struggling to put her experiences into words. "Important things about the stars and time and how everything connects together. But something is stopping him from remembering clearly. Dr. Hayes's latest translations of the ancient inscriptions had begun to reveal disturbing hints about the purpose of Ember's imprisonment, suggesting that his people had been forced to make terrible choices to prevent some kind of cosmic catastrophe. But Lily, with her child's intuition and her unique connection to Ember, began to sense that the truth was far more complex than the ancient warnings suggested, and that the key to understanding lay not in the technology that bound him, but in the emotional bridge that connected their two species across the vast differences in their evolution. As her mother worked to decode the scientific mysteries of Ember's condition, Lily focused on the deeper mystery of his heart and mind, building a relationship that would soon prove more powerful than any technology the ancient dragon civilization had ever created. The mining station's adults saw Ember as a specimen to be studied, a potential weapon to be controlled, or at best, a puzzle to be solved. But Lily saw him as simply a friend who needed help, and that difference in perspective would soon change everything for both human and dragon alike. The breakthrough came at 3 a.m. when Dr. Hayes, exhausted from weeks of translation work, finally cracked the linguistic pattern of the ancient dragon inscriptions, and what she read made her blood run cold with the terrible weight of understanding. The symbols that covered the chamber walls told a story of cosmic guardians who had once maintained the delicate balance between creation and destruction throughout the galaxy, beings of such immense power that they could reshape reality itself with focused thought. According to the inscriptions, young dragons underwent a transformation upon reaching maturity that connected them directly to the fundamental forces of space and time, granting them abilities that placed them among the most powerful entities in the universe. But this transformation came with a price. Some dragons became overwhelmed by the cosmic forces flowing through them, losing themselves to the intoxicating rush of unlimited power and threatening to tear apart the very fabric of existence. The energy shackles binding Ember, Dr. Hayes realized with growing horror, were not cruel restraints imposed by enemies, but desperate measures created by his own people to prevent premature transformation in their youngest members. They were supposed to be temporary, she whispered to herself as she read the detailed, technical specifications carved into the crystal walls, just long enough for proper guidance and training to be provided. But the final inscriptions told a tale of war and extinction. Enemy forces had swept across the dragon homeworlds, while the adult population fought desperately to defend not just their own species, but the cosmic stability their kind had maintained. For millions of years in the end, every adult dragon had perished in the conflict, leaving their young trapped in eternal childhood by the very devices meant to protect them until they were ready to inherit their cosmic responsibilities. Ember was not just any young dragon. He was the last of his kind, possibly the only survivor of an ancient civilization that had sacrificed everything to preserve the balance of the universe. The crystallized tears that fell from his eyes were revealed to be concentrated temporal energy, each drop representing stolen moments from his natural development. Time itself made solid by the grief of a species that would never complete its growth. Dr. Hayes rushed to share her discovery with Lily, finding her daughter sitting beside Ember's cage, reading aloud from one of her favorite adventure novels while the small dragon listened with obvious fascination. "Sweetheart, I need to tell you something important about Ember," she began, struggling to find words that a 12-year-old could understand without being traumatized by the magnitude of the tragedy. But Lily looked up at her with eyes that seemed older than her years and said quietly, "He's the last one, isn't he, Mom? That's why he's so sad all the time." Dr. Hayes stared at her daughter in amazement, realizing that their empathic connection had already provided Lily with insights that had taken weeks of scientific analysis to achieve. "How did you know?" she asked, settling down beside her daughter on the crystal chamber floor. "He showed me," Lily explained simply, reaching out to press her hand against the energy barrier. "Not with pictures or words, but with feelings. The loneliness is so big it could fill up whole planets." As Dr. Hayes explained the technical details of her translation work, Ember began to respond to their conversation with increased animation, his scales shifting through complex patterns of color that seemed to correspond to specific emotional states. The shackles were meant to protect him until he was ready to learn how to control his powers, Dr. Hayes concluded, but with no teachers left to guide him. He's been trapped like this for thousands of years. Lily absorbed this information with the straightforward acceptance that children possess when faced with even the most extraordinary circumstances. But her next question surprised her mother with its sophistication. If the shackles recognize dragon thoughts and emotions, and they're starting to react to human feelings too, what happens if someone who really cares about Ember tries to help him break free? Dr. Hayes felt a chill of fear run down her spine as she realized the implications of her daughter's question. The energy readings had indeed shown fluctuations whenever Lily was present, suggesting that the ancient technology was somehow responding to human neural patterns. The inscriptions warn that improper removal could kill him, she said carefully. Or worse, it could trigger an uncontrolled transformation that might tear apart local space-time. But even as she spoke these warnings, Dr. Hayes couldn't ignore the mounting evidence that Ember's condition was deteriorating. His life signs were growing weaker each day, and the frequency of his crystalline tears was increasing despite Lily's visits. Meanwhile, Station Commander Rivers had been receiving increasing pressure from the Galactic Mining Consortium to transfer Ember to their primary research facility on New Geneva, where military scientists could study his potential applications as a strategic weapon. "I understand your concerns, Doctor," Rivers explained during their daily briefing, "but we're talking about technology that could revolutionize space travel, planetary defense, maybe even time manipulation itself." Dr. Hayes argued passionately for more time to study Ember's condition and find a safe way to help him. But the consortium's demands were backed by legal authority that superseded her scientific protocols. A transport ship arrived within days, equipped with a specialized containment unit designed to hold Ember during the journey to New Geneva. And despite Dr. Hayes's protests, the transfer was scheduled for the following morning. Lily, devastated by the news that her friend would be taken away for experimentation, spent her final evening with Ember trying to comfort him as he sensed the approaching separation and began crying more crystal tears than ever before. "I won't let them hurt you," she promised, pressing both hands against the energy barrier and feeling the warm presence in her mind grow stronger in response to her determination. That night, as Dr. Hayes worked frantically to find legal or scientific grounds to prevent the transfer, Lily lay awake in her quarters, feeling Ember's distress through their empathic connection, and knowing that she was possibly his only hope for freedom. The ancient inscriptions had mentioned that the shackles responded to deep emotional bonds and protective instincts, the same qualities that had motivated Ember's people to create them in the first place. As the hours passed, Lily began to understand that her connection with Ember was not just unusual, but potentially revolutionary. A bridge between species that could unlock the compassionate intentions behind the ancient technology. She had read enough of her mother's research to know that the energy shackles were powered by complex algorithms designed to recognize the emotional patterns associated with wisdom, maturity, and the protective instincts that would prevent misuse of cosmic power. What if, she wondered, the shackles weren't looking for dragon emotions at all, but for any consciousness capable of the love and responsibility needed to guide such tremendous power? The thought filled her with both hope and terror. But as she felt Ember's fear and desperation growing stronger through the night, Lily knew that she might be the only person in the galaxy who could save the last member of an ancient race of cosmic guardians. Tomorrow would bring the transport ship and the end of their time together, unless she could find the courage to attempt something that had never been tried before, using the power of human compassion to unlock shackles that had held fast for thousands of years. As dawn approached, Lily made her decision, knowing that she was about to risk everything for a friend who had already lost everything, and hoping that the love between two different species might prove stronger than the ancient fears that had created Ember's prison. The transport ship's engines hummed with menacing efficiency as it descended through Astoria 7's purple atmosphere, carrying specialized containment equipment designed to hold the galaxy's most dangerous specimens, and Lily felt Ember's terror spike through their empathic connection like a knife through her heart. Station Commander Rivers supervised the loading procedures with military precision, while Dr. Hayes argued futilely for additional research time. But the consortium's orders were absolute. Ember would be transferred to New Geneva within hours, as the transport crew prepared their advanced containment systems. Something unprecedented began happening in the crystal chamber. Ember's emotional Distress was causing fluctuations in the energy grid that powered the mining station. "Sir, we're detecting power surges throughout the facility," reported Chief Engineer Marcus as warning lights flashed throughout the command center. "The source appears to be the creature's holding area." Commander Rivers dismissed these concerns as minor technical difficulties, focused entirely on completing the transfer according to schedule. But Dr. Hayes recognized the readings as evidence that Ember's connection to cosmic forces was growing stronger despite his imprisonment. Lily, confined to her quarters under strict orders to stay away from the restricted areas, felt every spike of Ember's panic as if it were her own, and she knew with absolute certainty that separating them now would destroy them both. Using her intimate knowledge of the station's maintenance tunnels gained from months of exploration, she slipped past the security checkpoints while the adults focused on their preparation activities. The crystal chamber had been transformed into a hive of activity, with transport technicians setting up quantum stabilizers and energy dampeners around Ember's cage, but their presence only increased his distress. When Lily emerged from the access tunnel, Ember immediately calmed at the sight of her, his frantic thrashing against the energy barriers ceasing as their empathic bond reasserted itself. "I'm here," she whispered, approaching the containment area despite the shouts of surprised technicians. "I won't let them take you away from me." "Thy Furin," lead transport specialist tried to intercept her, but the moment Lily came within range of the energy shackles, something extraordinary occurred. The ancient restraints began resonating with human neural patterns in ways their creators had never intended. Alarms shrieked throughout the station as energy cascades rippled outward from the crystal chamber, overloading circuits and causing massive power fluctuations that threatened the life support systems. "Get that girl away from the specimen," Commander Rivers barked over the communication system, but his security team hesitated as they witnessed something that defied all scientific understanding. Lily pressed her hands against the energy barrier, and instead of being repelled by the crackling force field, her touch seemed to merge with the ancient technology, creating feedback loops that made the very air shimmer with unleashed potential. Through their connection, she could feel Ember's consciousness expanding, touching briefly on the vast cosmic awareness that his people had once possessed. And for a terrifying moment, she glimpsed the true scope of power contained within his small form. "The containment field is destabilizing," shouted Dr. Hayes as she burst into the chamber, her scientific instruments detecting energy levels that shouldn't have been possible with current technology. But Lily was beyond hearing her mother's warnings, lost in the profound experience of touching minds with a being whose species had once shepherded entire galaxies through cosmic transitions. The energy shackles, designed to respond to protective instincts and emotional maturity, recognized in Lily's desperate love for Ember the same qualities that had motivated their creation thousands of years ago. As the ancient algorithms processed this unprecedented input, the restraints began to interpret Lily's compassion as evidence that proper guidance was finally available for their charge. "The binding matrix is accepting her authorization codes," Dr. Hayes said in amazement, reading data that challenged everything she thought she knew about the Dragon technology. The transport ship's containment specialists tried desperately to stabilize their equipment as energy surges from the crystal chamber threatened to overload their quantum stabilizers. Commander Rivers ordered an immediate evacuation of the lower levels, but Lily refused to leave Ember's side, even as the space around them filled with crackling energy that made her hair stand on end. "You don't understand," she called out to the retreating adults. "He's not dangerous. He's just scared and alone. And these chains are killing him." The energy shackles began to pulse in rhythm with Lily's heartbeat, and through their empathic connection, she felt Ember's amazement as he realized that freedom might actually be possible, but the process was far from safe. The discharge of accumulated temporal energy was creating space-time distortions that threatened to tear apart the local area. Ember, sensing the danger to his human friend, began fighting to control the cosmic forces flowing through him instead of simply releasing them in uncontrolled bursts. "Hold on to me," Lily whispered, pressing her forehead against the energy barrier as reality twisted around them. "We can do this together." The transport ship, caught in the expanding energy field, suffered critical system failures that forced an emergency landing. Back on the station's landing platform, in the crystal chamber, The ancient shackles finally recognized what their creators had always hoped for: a consciousness capable of guiding cosmic power with wisdom and compassion rather than fear or greed. The energy barriers dissolved with a sound like crystalline bells, and for the first time in millennia, Ember was free to move beyond the confines of his prison. But instead of the explosive release of power that everyone feared, something beautiful happened. Ember's first act of freedom was to gently touch Lily's face with one small paw, and his tears stopped falling. The cosmic forces that had been building toward catastrophic release were channeled instead into healing the damage caused by thousands of years of imprisonment, and the crystal chamber filled with warm light that made everyone present feel a sense of peace they had never experienced before. "Impossible," breathed the lead transport specialist as his instruments registered energy levels that should have destroyed the planet, contained and controlled by nothing more than the bond between a human child and an alien creature. Dr. Hayes watched in wonder as her daughter helped Ember take his first steps outside the energy cage, his scales glowing with health and vitality that had been suppressed for countless centuries. Commander Rivers, faced with a situation that none of his military training had prepared him for, could only stare as Lily and Ember walked calmly through the chaos they had somehow transformed into harmony. The ancient prison had finally served its true purpose, not to contain dangerous power, but to preserve it until someone with the wisdom to guide it properly could be found, and that someone, against all odds and expectations, turned out to be a 12-year-old human girl whose greatest strength was her capacity to see past differences in love without reservation. The liberation was complete, but as Ember's consciousness expanded to encompass his true nature, both he and Lily began to understand that their journey together was only just beginning. 3 weeks after the liberation, Ember had grown from a creature the size of a house cat into a magnificent being the size of a large horse, his scales now shimmering with colors that seemed to capture the light of distant nebulae, and his presence filled the research station with an aura of calm that made everyone feel safer than they had ever felt before. The transformation had been gradual and beautiful, rather than violent and destructive, guided by Lily's unwavering compassion and Ember's newfound ability to control the cosmic forces that flowed through his consciousness. Dr. Hayes documented every stage of the process with scientific fascination, but even she had to admit that what was happening defied conventional understanding of biology, physics, and psychology. "He's not becoming what his ancestors were," she explained to Commander Rivers during their daily briefings. "He's becoming something entirely new, a cosmic guardian whose power is tempered by human values of friendship and empathy." Ember's true abilities had manifested in ways that amazed everyone who witnessed them. He could manipulate local spacetime to heal injuries instantly, create protective barriers that could withstand meteor impacts, and most remarkably, he could sense cosmic disturbances that threatened inhabited worlds days before they became dangerous. But unlike his ancestors who had maintained cosmic balance from a distance, Ember chose to use his powers in direct service to the beings he had come to care about, particularly the humans who had shown him kindness when he was at his most vulnerable, the Galactic Mining Consortium. Realizing that they now faced a being of immense power who could not be contained or controlled, initially attempted to claim Ember as a strategic asset through various legal and political maneuvers. The creature represents technology and capabilities that could revolutionize space travel and planetary defense, argued Consortium Representative Williams during a heated video conference. It belongs in a secure facility where it can be properly studied. But Ember's response to these demands was both gentle and absolute. He simply created a localized time dilation field around the mining station that made it impossible for any unauthorized ships to approach while leaving all communication systems perfectly functional. "I think he's making his position clear," Lily said with a smile as she watched consortium vessels trying unsuccessfully to penetrate the temporal barrier. "He's not going to be anyone's weapon or specimen, Commander." Rivers, faced with a situation that no military protocol had ever anticipated, found himself in the unique position of hosting the galaxy's most powerful being, who happened to prefer playing games with a 12-year-old girl, to demonstrating his cosmic abilities. Ember's relationship with Lily had evolved into something that transcended traditional friendship. They communicated through a blend of telepathy and emotion that allowed them to share thoughts and feelings across any distance. When Lily attended her virtual school classes, Ember would curl up nearby and listen with obvious fascination, his ancient intelligence finding joy in learning about human culture, history, and literature. "He understands poetry better than most adults," Lily told her mother one evening as they watched Ember create small aurora displays in response to particularly beautiful verses. "I think he sees the patterns in words the same way he sees patterns in space and time." Dr. Hayes had established herself as the galaxy's foremost expert on human-dragon relations, documenting the unprecedented partnership that was revolutionizing xenobiological understanding across known space. But more importantly, she watched her daughter grow into her role as humanity's first dragon ambassador, with pride and amazement at the wisdom Lily displayed in navigating such extraordinary responsibilities. The other mining crews and research staff had initially been nervous about living alongside a being of such immense power, but Ember's gentle nature and obvious devotion to protecting rather than dominating had gradually won over even the most skeptical. "He saved our lives yesterday," reported mining team leader Sarah after a cave-in that should have killed 3 workers. "Somehow he knew it was going to happen before our sensors detected any instability, and he reinforced the tunnel structure just in time." These incidents became increasingly common as Ember learned to use his cosmic awareness to predict and prevent disasters throughout the mining operation, turning what had been a dangerous frontier job into one of the safest assignments in human space. When the first cosmic disturbance appeared on long-range sensors, a gravitational anomaly that threatened to destabilize the entire star system, Ember and Lily worked together to address it in ways that amazed the scientific community. "He doesn't just fix the problems," Dr. Hayes reported to the assembled xenobiologists and astrophysicists. "He teaches us how to understand them and prevent them from recurring." The solution involved Ember guiding human scientists through calculations that revealed how to use existing technology to reinforce local spacetime, creating a permanent stabilization field that would protect the system for thousands of years. This collaborative approach became the model for all of Ember's cosmic guardianship activities. Rather than simply using his power to solve problems, he worked to educate and empower other species to participate in maintaining cosmic stability. The tears that had once crystallized with temporal energy now fell only rarely, and when they did, they were simple expressions of joy and gratitude that dissolved harmlessly into the air. "I understand now why the shackles were necessary," Ember explained to Lily during one of their quiet conversations, his voice resonating directly in her mind with warmth and affection. "My ancestors were right to fear uncontrolled power, but they couldn't have imagined that the solution would come from another species entirely." The transformation was complete when Ember chose to establish his permanent residence, not in some cosmic realm befitting his abilities, but in a modified hangar bay on the mining station where he could remain close to the humans who had become his family. Lily, now recognized throughout human space as the bridge between species, continued her education while simultaneously serving as Ember's guide to understanding human nature and values. Their partnership had created something unprecedented in galactic history, a cosmic guardian whose immense power was channeled through the emotional wisdom of a species that specialized in forming bonds across biological and cultural differences. "We're not conquering the universe," Lily explained to a delegation of human diplomats who came to study the relationship. "We're learning to be friends with it." The mining station had been transformed from a remote industrial outpost into humanity's first center for cosmic cooperation, where beings from across the galaxy came to learn how empathy and understanding could overcome the barriers between species. And at the heart of it all was the friendship between a young human girl and the last dragon, whose tears of sorrow had become tears of joy as they built a future that neither species could have imagined alone. Ember's greatest power, it turned out, was not his ability to manipulate cosmic forces, but his capacity to inspire others to reach beyond their limitations and discover the strength that came from genuine connection across the vast differences that separated the children of different stars.